how do you respond to the objection that Newton, Kepler, etc., only believed in God because they were taught in institutions run by the church, and everyone traditionally believed in God in those days? Your starter for 10.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say that this is a Q&A, so you're bound to be disappointed. The reason for that is this: I can simply react to the questions and tell you how I would begin to think about them. But that's not a bad thing, because if your question that you asked is a genuine question and not just simply being asked to test what I know, you'll soon realize I know relatively little. But if it's a genuine question, then the far more important thing is that when you go home and you're not satisfied with what I say, that you will do the work to get a satisfactory answer to your question, and it'll live with you for the rest of your life. So it's an inadequate process. I will try and keep my answers short, and they will be, by definition, inadequate. Now, the question about Newton and Kepler and so on, it is the fact that in the Europe of the 15th and 16th centuries, the general worldview was theistic. But you see, the way the question is phrased reminds me of Richard Dawkins asking the very same question. Everyone believed in God in the world. That is not true. Dawkins had forgotten China, for instance. And the interesting thing here is, one, that yes, there was a Christian theistic background in Europe, and that's what educated Newton and co. But the argument that somehow there's no real connection between the rise of science and the Christian background is rather rendered negative by the fact that there was one person who was puzzled by the fact that science, in the sense of abstract science, never developed among the Chinese. Technology, yes, printing, fireworks, and so on. But there was an expert on China, spoke fluent Chinese, and his name was Joseph Needham. He was a chemist. He wrote the Standard Dictionary on Chinese technology. And interestingly, he was a neo-Marxist in his philosophy, and he tried for some years to explain within an atheist paradigm why it was the Chinese never developed the natural sciences as happened in the West. But he came to this conclusion. He said, I can only see it in the fact that the Chinese lacked the concept of a single creator who had created the universe to run according to laws that he had designed. So it's documented there. So it is not the fact that everybody believed in God. And it's also demonstrable that the natural sciences did arise in that part of the world that believed in God. And thirdly, it stands in one sense to reason that what theism, biblical theism, gave to these people was the concept that this is a rational universe and therefore science can be done. It fits together perfectly. And in fact, this thesis has been developed by John Hidley-Brooke, for example, with whom I worked in Oxford, and his successor, who actually argues that the rise of science was not simply due to Christian theism and monotheism. It was due in part to the changed attitude of the reformers towards the understanding of Scripture, in that they were prepared to approach the Bible and let it speak for itself, instead of imposing on it methods of allegorical interpretation. And so they said, let's do the same with the universe. Let's go and see what the universe says.